everybody. Raina here, and thanks for joining us for our latest episode of Book Banter, the first Book Banter of 2025. Yay! Welcome to the new year, everyone. This evening, I will be talking with Alexandra Vasti. She is a British literature professor by day and a USA Today bestselling romance writer by night. After finishing her PhD at Columbia University, she moved here to New Orleans with her family, and we're glad that she did. Her books have been featured in the New York Times, NPR, Entertainment Weekly, and elsewhere. She is the author of Ne'er-Do-Well, which was her first book that came out in July of last year, and the upcoming book Earl Crush, which we're going to be talking about this evening. This one comes out on the 21st. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to pre-order this from one of our local indies so you can get a really cool pre-order swag with your book. But without further ado, I'm going to welcome Alex to Book Banter. Hi!
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here and chat with you.
Yay! I am so glad that you could join me as well. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because we have run into each other multiple times and talked a little bit at the bookstore and the book club and these different things, but this is an opportunity where I get to sit and just talk to you, and I'm very excited about that.
Well, thank you so much. That really means a lot. And thank you for reading Earl Crush. And yeah, it's very exciting.
Of course. So, before Ne'er-Do-Well came out, I have read some romance books. Like, I've read a few romance books here and there, but I'm not a romance reader. And then we got the arc of your book at Blue Cypress, and like Jody read it and Leanna read it, and then like we're just passing this around and everyone's reading it. And I think it's one of the first books, I think that's very safe to say, that all of us at the bookstore read, and all of us, like, independently came back in and went, "You're right, I loved it."
Well, that's an honor, truly. And yeah, I appreciate that a lot. I'm so glad. I mean, I think that it is a very romancy romance. So it's not, I would not in any way say it like straddles the line with another genre. It's a very romancy romance. So I'm very grateful and honored that you enjoyed it.
I think that Ne'er-Do-Well, and now that I've finished Earl Crush as well, just proves the point that if the writing is good and the story is compelling, it doesn't really matter whether like it's in a genre you don't typically read or whatever. It doesn't matter. And your books do that. So yay.
Thank you. Yeah, I read widely across genres, but I have always definitely been a romance fan. I have read romance since I think I read my first romance novel when I was 11. My mother gave it to me. She was like, "I think you would like this." And I was like, "Boy, do I." I came from like generations of romance readers, and even just like as a kid, like watching Disney movies, I was always very invested in the romance plot. Like that's just always been something that's been very compelling and interesting to me. So yeah, I just enjoy that sort of internal character arc journey a lot.
It is also something that almost everyone can relate to, whether you've had a successful romance in your life or not. At some point, most people have had a crush on someone or wanted to be with or pursue someone, like, and then did, and that works out to different degrees for different people. But like, it's almost something that like everybody can relate to some degree.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly a very, if not universal, certainly very near universal human experience for sure.
Absolutely. So you said you read your first romance novel when you were 11. Was it like a true, real romance novel, or like a?
Oh yeah. Okay, this is like a lore. This is like some part of my backstory. My first romance novel was Whitney, My Love. I was 11 years old, by Judith McNaught. Came out in the 80s. I actually like recently did an Instagram live chat about it with some author friends because it's so bananas. This book is wild. Like, okay, my mother gave this to me. My poor mother. I tell the story all the time. She's like probably horrified. My mother gave this to me. It is a sexy historical romance novel. It was a huge smash hit when it came out. It transformed Regency romance forever. But no, it's not only is it like a sexy romance novel. He paddles her. There's like it's. My mom was like, like this. And I read it and I was like, on the one hand, like, what did I just read? But on the other hand, is there more? Like, can I get more? Yes, as I learned, there were many, many more, the whole genre. So I fell in love with romance and specifically historical romance pretty much right then. Another book series that was really foundational to me that I was also reading when I was like 11, 12 were the Bridgerton books. I remember I actually started reading Julia Quinn before Bridgerton. We used to go to this little used bookstore by the house, and she sold a lot of used books, but she also had new books. And I remember she had gotten like an advance copy from Avon, and she was like, "Oh, Alex," she was like, "I know you already like Julia Quinn." And it was the first Bridgerton book, and she was like, she was like, "She has hit a new level. Like, you are gonna love this." And I had to wait till it like actually came out. So I have been reading those Bridgerton books like since I was a kid, since they first came out, and they were really foundational to me too.
I love that. Okay. So have you talked to your mom since then? Did she know what she was doing? Did she remember? Well, no, I mean about this book. I'm assuming you've talked to your mom since then. But like about this incident.
Oh yeah.
Because
no,
like
she knows.
Did she know at the time? She was like, I'm consciously like, I remember everything that happens in this book and I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I've ever been like, what were you thinking necessarily? But I just was reading a lot of adult novels at the time at that age. And that was like one of her favorites. And she was like, oh, I bet you'll really like this. And, I kind of really like love that she, I mean, I did love it, and I knew it was fiction. I wasn't like, oh yes, this is how people behave. I knew it wasn't real. And I really think that's, I'm a mom now, and I think you are kind of really like aware of what is appropriate for your kid. Like I just recently finished reading The Hunger Games with my oldest, who is 8. And I think that, generally one might argue that the Hunger Games series is a little bit grown up for an 8-year-old, right? There's lots of, but like, I knew that she would be capable and comfortable of absorbing that, and that it wouldn't be something that pushed her into a place of discomfort or anything like that. So I like props to my mom, because she knew that I was ready for that. I was capable of distinguishing fact from fiction. And here we are.
I mean, it's worked out. It's worked out. Yeah. that inspiration at a young age has just flourished into this.
And my mom has read all of my books, which nice. I don't know. I think like maybe I could potentially be embarrassed, like, oh, these are sexy romance novels and my mom's reading them. But you know what? She gave me Whitney My Love at 11. So obviously, it's fine.
That's true. You're right, because that does open up this doorway where this is the connection that you and your mom have and that you've had for a long time. So it's not like a taboo subject or a weird like thing where you're like, especially in books, right? She can give you a book, you can give her a book, and you're cool. I know books also like with kids give you an opportunity to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So like my son's 18 now, so he does not read anything I recommend right now. But when he did, sometimes I would like give him books knowing a certain subject matter and then waiting to have that follow-up conversation when he was done with the book.
Right.
So that's another thing your mom may or may not have been thinking of, but was probably at the ready for any of those questions and everything. Let that book open the door, and then she's like, okay, I'm here to parent on the back end.
Right.
If there are any questions. So that's great. Yeah. Because those types of subjects would be more difficult to like, hey, sit down on the couch, let me talk to you. But now you've read this book. Right. And Hunger Games is similar, where like there are some concepts in the Hunger Games that might be that like kids should know about and that parents should be there to have that conversation, but also might be a little weird or difficult for a parent to go like, have a seat, let's talk about capitalism. Let's talk about what could go wrong. Yeah.
No, but you're exactly right. It's been a pleasure to read these books and to have, and just like the questions that naturally come up. She's like, who is the bad guy? And I'm like, that's such a good question. Who is the bad guy? And I love the Hunger Games books. I really have enjoyed revisiting them. I read them when they first came out, but I had not reread them since. And they were better than I remembered. I mean, really, there was a lot to talk about.
And I have not reread them, but I read them when they first came out, and I just feel like they would. I feel like they would hold up. It's a lot like
absolutely.
Yeah. And I haven't seen the newest movie. Have you seen the new movie on the songbirds and
No, I read the book, but I didn't watch the movie. But I'm very excited. There's another book coming out like this in March, I think. I'm very excited.
yes, it's coming out. So Hey Mitch's story.
Mitch's story. Sunrise on the Lake, I think. Oh, so excited.
Yeah. I'm also excited about that, not just to have one in the universe, but also that it's Hey Mitch's story, because he's so grumpy.
He's a really compelling character. Yeah.
Right. He's very compelling. Like there's so much going on there, and we don't get enough of it in the book.
Yeah. And you know what? I was sort of surprised rereading it. Like, he does not have, like, he never gets fixed. You know, he's as tormented and troubled and miserable at the end as at the beginning. And she was really brave with a lot of the choices that she made in the series. I really, really loved revisiting them recently.
Yeah, I agree.
Now we're reading Howl's Moving Castle. Have you ever read Howl's Moving Castle?
I have not. I've seen the show, but I haven't.
So I have not watched the film. We're going to watch it after we finish the book. We're almost done. We've got 30 pages left. It's so charming. It's so good.
That's one I should do. I should do for sure. Okay, so you definitely read romance before you started reading romance or writing romance, but also, like, did you always want to be a writer? Like, is this your thing?
Yeah, I did. I did. That's maybe not the most interesting answer, but I really did. I was an English major in college, but like, where I went to college, the University of Florida, you could be an English major and there weren't like required classes, which in retrospect, like as an English professor now, I'm like, there should have been some, but no, you could take anything. It was any 10 classes and you were an English major. So I think I took like 8 creative writing classes, and then I took like 2 classes on Jane Austen. That was my undergraduate degree. Okay. So I was very, very focused on creative writing. And then I went and did an MFA in creative writing. And I got a little bit like, I just wanted to change direction. So after that, I did a PhD in literature, in fiction, like in literary fiction, and then became a professor. But I never really abandoned creative writing. I always knew that I wanted to be a big part of my life. So I feel really lucky that I'm like living my literal childhood dream. It's very cool.
Congratulations.
Better than I expected. I was focused on the writing part, and which I love writing. But I had no idea that there would be like meeting readers and talking to people. And it's been so special and cool.
Well, that's a piece that I think everybody, until they get exposed to it, just don't even think of it. Like, growing up, I'm sure there were plenty of authors I could have met. It wasn't really a thing. I mean, it was, but it wasn't a thing in my life for sure. And it's not for lack of going to a bookstore or reading books or like any of that. It's just, it wasn't, I never even thought of it. And it wasn't until I started working at Barnes & Noble, like, I don't know, close to 20 years ago now, that I was like, oh, this is a thing. Like,
yeah,
and so many readers feel the same way. They don't have any idea people will come into the bookstore. And they were like, oh, you have authors come here? And I'm like, yeah, like a lot. That is just wild, mind-blowing to them. And I love being able to make that connection, like be that part of, that's my part of the village, where I'm like, yes, you've heard of this book. Look, here's the author right here for real. You could talk to her. She will write a message in your book. Like, that's amazing. In your book.
I will. Right. Yeah, it's been really cool too, for people to say, one thing that I get sometimes is like, oh, like, you were my first historical romance. And that is so special to me because historical romance has brought me so much joy for literally over 25 years. I have been reading and loving historical romance. And so it's really cool for me to think like I could be like welcoming some people into the genre that has meant so much to me and just brought me so much just delight and happiness. So it's cool.
I love it. Okay, we have a question. Ghosty Gal is asking, which says, I love that your books weave in mystery subplots. What are the chances of a Regency detective series or seeing more of those elements in future books?
Okay, this is not a question I can like strictly answer because of publishing, but let me just say this. I would say the chances are extremely good. I hope to tell you more. in the coming months. But I would say that I'm so glad you like that. And I hope that I have an audience for books with mystery elements.
Clearly, you have one at the very least.
At least one. I'll let them know.
They will tell more people, and then more people will.
No, I love to write mystery elements, and I just think it's really fun. I mean, for me, the romance is like really what I'm there for, like my feelings, to get my feelings involved. But I love having a mystery element or a mystery aspect as well. I think it's so fun. In Ladies in Hating, which I'm finally getting to talk a little bit more about, we finally got to reveal the title and now finally the cover yesterday. I've been dying. This cover makes me so happy. So there is a little bit of a mystery in Ladies in Hating as well. It's kind of I took some inspiration from Jane Austen and Northanger Abbey, which kind of plays with Gothic tropes. So that's kind of what I was trying to do, play with a lot of the Gothic tropes but make them fun and funny. So there some of the Gothic elements of what is this murder and who could it be? And is there a secret inheritance? And does someone have a secret identity? So all that's in there. And there's a little bit of a mystery in Ladies in Hating. But in terms of an actual more mystery focused series, I'll update you.
Question mark. Check back soon.
Check back soon.
Yes. The Ladies in Hating cover is pretty great. So I'm going to post, I just put a link in the comments to your Instagram post that has it, because it's still not updated in bookshop.org. So you can also look there to purchase it in this link that I just put, but it doesn't have the cover there yet. So you have to go to the Instagram, to check out the cover.
There you go.
So cool.
My camera roll. It's good. It's a bit blurry, I think, on the camera. But,
Does the same artist do all three covers?
Okay. Yes. Petra Braun is her name, and she was my first choice as an artist. I was like, could we get Petra Braun, please? And they did. They got her, and I'm so happy. I love just the way she uses color, and motion, and all the covers are, the characters are kind of in motion. They're sort of a little bit comedic in their poses.
I kind of love, I love that they're you don't know if they're going on a little ride together and it's a little windy, or they're running away from something, because they're going kind of fast, but it's great. I love it.
Okay, you know what I sent her for my I always send them a page that's called vibes. These are the vibes of this book, and they're just run with it. So one of the things that I sent for the vibes for this book, for Earl Crush, for the cover, was in The Little Mermaid, when Ariel has her legs and they're hanging out, Ariel and Prince Eric, and they're going on a carriage ride, and she steals the reins, and she's like, hiya, and they're galloping away. I sent that to her, and she just totally nailed that on the cover. She's like, yes, that is the vibe. Here you go, have it. So
I see that.
Yeah.
Now that I know, it's definitely, yes, I get that for sure. Michelle says she likes the madcap zaniness of Earl Crush, a zany 1930s feel. Ooh, that's so true. Yeah, I feel that too.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, Michelle. I'm excited that you're here. And yes, screwball comedies are my favorite thing. And so I appreciate that. Absolutely.
In Earl Crush, I knew the general setup, but was still sort of taken off guard with the interaction, when she shows up at the door and the Earl opens the door, and just those few lines right there, I was like, oh, we're just right there. We're not gonna figure go inside, talk a little bit, try and figure out oh, you're who, what? No, it's just straight up right there. I was like, way to go, lady. I'm talking about you, and I'm talking about God, I'm so bad with character names.
Oh no, Lydia. It's okay. Lydia.
Yes. Both. Clearly, you're the same person. But you made Lydia say it. But yes. Yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah, so this, if you're in the audience, this is not a spoiler. This is the premise of the book, is that Lydia our main character has been corresponding anonymously with this Earl for the last 3 years. She's an heiress. Things have not been going well for her on the marriage mart. So she finds out that this Earl that she's been chatting with is destitute. She's like, you know what? I have money. don't have a husband. I'm going to like toddle up to Scotland and lie to everyone about where I am and propose. And we're going to have this marriage of convenience. So she goes up to Scotland. She knocks on the door. Again, this is chapter 1. He opens the door. She's standing on the doorstep and proposes. And he's like, I literally have no idea who you are. So then we come to find out that his brother has been catfishing her for the last 3 years. So that's the premise. And that was the first thing I came up with for this book. I had this premise in mind. I just had this like picture in my head of this poor woman, you know, the poor lady just tormenting her in scene 1 of her knocking on the door and proposing, and this guy being like, I don't know who you are. But I really wanted, I really wanted her story to start off with like this catastrophe, like where she, you know, a big part of her arc is that she's very shy and she struggles with sort of putting herself out there and taking risks. And I wanted it to start off with this disaster, right? Like, I have taken this risk, the biggest risk of my life, and not only has it failed, it's been the worst possible, like the most humiliating, the most terrible failure. And that's the first scene. And I really wanted to, I just felt like it would really put a lot of heart into the book to see her choosing to put herself out there again and choosing to make herself vulnerable and choosing to be brave because she falls in love with someone and because she thinks that's what, you know, she knows that that's what that person needs. So that's why the story starts the way it does. Even though I was, oh my gosh, I didn't really think it was that embarrassing. But then I was listening to the audio, and Mari Morrison, who's the audiobook narrator, she really like brings it to life. And I was like, this first chapter is the most embarrassing thing I have ever experienced. So if you don't like that secondhand embarrassment, I recommend reading it with your eyes, like, or just skip the first chapter. Maybe.
Well, now that you have the gist of it, you can skip the first chapter.
Yeah, if you're listening and you don't like secondhand embarrassment, I promise it's like 1 to 2 chapters. It ends quite fast.
Well, actually, it made me feel better about almost every other embarrassment I've ever experienced, because I was like, well, at least I didn't do that. That didn't happen. You know,
we get into Arthur's head quite quickly. So like, she's tormented and embarrassed, and he's like, wow, look at this hot lady on my doorstep. You know? So it's okay. It's
no, I do also love how, like, when you are in his head in the beginning there, he's like, no, this is not a good idea. Buddy, this lady's clearly not doing okay. All right, so this is not the time to calm down. Like, he's talking to himself, but he can't like help himself. But then he's like, it's like, all right, get your shit together, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
I'm very fond of that vibe. Yeah.
The self-awareness is nice.
It's so funny because in the first time my editor read this book, she had put in the comments, we love a self-aware man. So there you go.
I mean, you know what? It can let you get away with a lot of things, being in a character's head and making them self-aware. Because, yeah, like, if you hadn't had that moment, that he could have come off as very crude and very, like, cold or you know, to her. But because we get that of his dialogue in his head, we're like, okay, that's not who he is.
Right. You get to have your cake and eat it too. Absolutely.
Right. Exactly. So you've had and are going to have 3 books come out pretty quickly, one after the other. I always am fascinated with, like, did you have them all 3 ready to go? Have you been writing frantically to make this deadline? Like, where in between? What are our...
No, I did not have them ready. Well, so Ne'er-Do-Well was written. This was my first novel, so I like wrote it, and then it was not the first novel I'd written, but it was the first novel that I attempted to get published. So I wrote it, and then I queried agents, and I got my agent, and then she sold it. So that one was done. But the next 2 were just kind of like the dream of an idea, the concepts of a plan. And so, so they have come out fairly close together. I think originally Ne'er-Do-Well was going to come out a little earlier, and then it kind of shifted around in the publishing schedule. So I think that's part of why they're so, like, they're not even 6 months apart. Ne'er-Do-Well and Earl Crush are like just under 6 months apart. And then Earl Crush and Ladies in Hating will be about 8 months apart. Yeah, I think that it's a little fast, but I feel okay with it. I will say I have not, so I'm also a professor. I have not written an academic article since like 2021. It's been a couple of years since that part of my career has taken a little bit of a backseat. I've done some stuff. That's not true. I haven't written an extended piece for a few years, although I have written a number of shorter things. But I just really love writing. Like when I have free time, that is what I would like to be doing with it. That is the most delightful and pleasant and pleasurable way for me to spend my time is to be writing a story. So yeah, so it's not been bad. I'm very happy and excited and grateful that I've gotten the chance to put out these books. And as I recently announced, we'll have 3 more historical romances. Yay!
I do want to take a couple minutes before we wrap up to talk about the pre-order campaign, because there's still time, everyone out there, to pre-order Early Crush. It's Earl Crush.
So many people have said that. Even I myself have occasionally typed Early Crush, so you're good.
So I wrote an email, and I was writing it on my phone, and it was spell checking to early, and I'm like, that's not what it is. Like, I need you to stop doing that, please, phone. You're making it look like I don't know what I'm doing. I would appreciate you not doing that. You're not helping.
When I type Earl on my phone, it's like crush. That's the next word. I'm like, yes, that is the next word I want. Thank you, phone.
Your phone knows you better than my phone knows me, clearly. But yeah, so we have this pre-order campaign at Blue Cypress, and I'm going to put a link to the book at Blue Cypress Books in the comments. So if you pre-order it from Blue Cypress, so you have like a week left to get your pre-order in, there's swag, there's this amazing packaging that Jody came up with. Honestly, Alex, I don't even know all of the things.
Yeah, so there is a vellum, like vellum, like the sort of semi-transparent, beautiful paper, character art overlay, so you can slide that in and kind of see the writing through it a little bit. It's very, very beautiful. I'm very fond of the artist who did that art. It'll be signed by me. You can request personalization if you want when you order. It'll be embossed. Jody made this really cool embosser that has like the Belvoir, so that all 3 of the books are set around Belvoir's library, which is this sort of like secret circulating library for ladies. So it's like embossed with the Belvoir's library logo. And then there's all this fabulous packaging that like incorporates all kinds of little bits and pieces from the book. There's these really cute stamps that Jody designed. There's the zebras. Beginning of the book, there's a zebra situation.
There is a zebra situation. There were a few things, and here's one of the things I love about historical romance or historical fiction is when I Google something and it is the true part.
It is so true. Yeah.
So just collecting exotic animals on your major, like massive estates in the UK and Scotland was a thing. I mean, some people still do it, but it was a thing in this time period, this sort of, and so zebras, that wouldn't have been as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, no. So in the book, I have it written that one of the characters kind of rescues neglected animals from menageries all over. And there's many wild and wacky animals listed. And I took every single animal from this catalog from the menagerie of the Earl of Derby, who was a real 18th century Earl, the 13th Earl of Derby, who was very, very, very obsessed with like collecting as many exotic animals as he could. And honestly, there were some even weirder animals on the list. And I was like, I can't put that because no one will believe me. So zebras, tropical birds, those all made it in. But there were some really wild ones that I left out.
I also love that they rescued them, because that is probably not how that would have gone down, but it makes me love the Earl even more. So that's the way I needed it to go down for him.
Right. Yeah, so that was perfect. Like an exotic animal collector would be less
appealing. It didn't age well. It will not age well. Yeah.
No.
So, yeah, I think we did it. We made it. Thank you so much,
Yay.
Alex, for
Thank you so
joining
much for
me.
having me, and thanks for reading the book. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. And thank you all for watching and commenting. Go pre-order the book now if you have not done so already. Definitely do that. And yeah, y'all all have a good night.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.